Welcome to the show. I'm excited to introduce today's guest, Greg Luczak, a man who's been on the roller coaster of life, but has also found aspirations to sit into and drive forward. Let's juice it up.
Go for it.
Yeah. All right, welcome to the Juice Ortiz Show. As always, my big fiance here, Amy Emerson.
Your big fiance.
Big personality,
Yes.
Not big and wit.
That's what we're
Let's let
talking.
all those listeners know.
We did just get off the holiday.
We got off on a rough start, babe.
That's okay. We got Greg Luczak with us today.
Howdy.
Client's Choice Realty with
Keller Williams Client's Choice. Absolutely. Thanks for the
I
plug.
found this guy through a realtor friend, and we were chatting a little bit at one of your open houses.
Yeah, that was
And-
the big grand opening.
Yeah, they are number 2 in Colorado Springs for volume of sales. So you guys know how to hustle and work.
For the time being, we're working it, man. We're working it. So I've got Keller Williams Client's Choice, obviously the brokerage that I'm overseeing right now as the operating principal, and then I've got my team as well, who's doing a real good job selling a lot of real estate. So we're real proud of them for sure.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I know we're going to hear more about
Yeah.
kind of how you got into that, but Greg has an awesome story of where he came from. And don't try and mimic what you had shared with me before, but just start over and share your story, like where you came from, what got you into what you're doing, and what's pushing you forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's funny. We were kind of bonding over resilience, right? Talking
Yeah.
about sort of your story and my story. And so my story was, found myself in Colorado Springs in 2005. In 2000, had a kid when I was 20, right? So behind the 8 ball, kind of right off the bat. Spent most of my 20s in like full on survival mode with it. My dad had a real bad stroke and a real bad heart attack when I was 23. So I found myself at 23, like legal guardian for my father and baby having a baby, right? Kind of stumbled into real estate after, pretty rough go in my 20s at 30, was working for a real estate company in their marketing department. Finally kind of decided I was going to get my license at 30. Really felt, back against the ropes, had to come out swinging. And that decision changed my life. I mean, that's the short of it. Kind of found what I was really put on this planet to do. And am a real testament to like when you find your jam, your life can really change for sure. Cause by the time I got my real estate license at 30, I was running out of supporters. I was running out of fans. I was running out of people that believed in me for sure. And so, I fell back against the ropes for sure and just hustled like crazy to dig out, man. And then here we are.
You're from Colorado Springs?
San Francisco originally.
Okay.
So San Francisco, lived there till I was about 19. Found myself going to college in Spokane, Washington. Went to the School of Hard Knocks, mostly having a kid at about 2 years in on that trip. And then found my way with my ex and my son to Colorado in 2005. Yeah.
So you were single parenting at 20.
Yeah. I mean, first have to get through the toxic relationship aspect of it. And then, totally.
I mean, that's a mental trip in and of itself.
Amy, I'd never lived not with roommates prior to that. I mean, I wasn't until like in my 30s, I knew how to do laundry or dishes or any of that kind of stuff. So, I mean, when I say survival mode, it was like full on survival mode, relationship to relationship, job to job. I was just trying to find something I could like grab onto and bring some fulfillment to my life throughout my entirety of my 20s, honestly. Yeah.
What got you through those rough days? Because I mean, some of those days, just waking up is like, I wish I was back in bed again.
Oh man, or times that you feel like you're getting ahead a little bit, then you get hit over the head with a bill, car breaks down or something.
You think,
like
is
that.
this my life? Like, am I willing this to happen?
Yeah, or even worse. I mean, you almost feel like you start to develop a little bit of almost like that. Why is this happening to me?
Yeah,
mentality.
That's a dangerous road to go
Dangerous.
down.
And honestly, I think it was, I got into real estate. I was about 30. And honestly, for some reason, I don't know what it was, whether it was just kind of the pressure of making something happen, the pressure of changing what I was doing or my circumstance. But I just honestly felt like, whatever's going to happen is going to be on me. And I kind of let all of that like victimization and all that BS kind of go out the window. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to be fully accountable for what's happening in my life moving forward and what's going to happen in my job. And that was life-changing. That was absolutely life-changing.
Was it like a slow progression, or did you hear a sermon? did you just wake up one day, you're like, this has got to stop?
I've thought back. I've tried to think back about like where the actual mind shift change was. I've had a couple in my career.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think back to what exactly caused it. I've never been able to think back and place it.
Really?
I think it was honestly just I use the example a lot with my team, where you get into a fight, you're always hoping to like exert your will and push the other person backwards, but sometimes you get pushed backwards and you're kind of fighting on your heels, fighting backwards, and you can do it for a little while fairly effectively, but at some point you literally just like feel your back against the ropes, and there's like two things you could do. You could cover up and get hit, or you can come out firing and try to exert your will on it. And that's the feeling that I remember feeling, is that I just like, okay, no more excuses. My supporters are drying up. The people that believe in me are believing in me less and less. It's time for me to do something with what I'm doing, instead of kind of hopping from job to job or from circumstance to circumstance when things get uncomfortable. So that was the feeling I had. What exactly prompted it? I've thought about it a bunch of times. I can't quite place that moment.
I want to ask you about your dad.
Yeah.
But before that, do you remember what car you were driving?
When I first got into real estate?
No, back when you were surviving.
Well, so here's the scoop, Juice. Man, I've always been kind of a hustler. And so I've actually always had a little bit of money in my pocket.
Oh, you were telling me about the warheads.
Oh, so Airheads. I was like in elementary
oh, that was
school.
You.
In elementary school, that's me. I would go to, I'd have my mom run to Costco
great story.
and get a whole pack of Airheads. I'd hustle them for $0.25 a piece. Kids, it's the easiest sale there is. Just bust out an Airhead at recess. Everybody's going to want one.
We're doing that
People
to my
will
kid.
find $0.25.
We are doing that for my 8-year-old son.
So I always had, whether it was like, oh man, in high school, I'd throw the quarters against the wall, and then whoever had the quarter closest to the wall would scoop them all. I would stay after school for hours throwing quarters against the wall until I got so darn good at it.
Dang.
I would scoop so many quarters. So I mean, I've always had that mentality where I've been able to hustle up some cash. So actually, man, one of the coolest cars I had was like in 2005. I had this old, like, not old, it was new then, old now. Those like rounded body Dodge Durangos.
Yeah.
Where they were kind of cool looking, but it was like blacked out, had a TV screen that popped out, all this stuff. But like savings, I mean, I had none of that. Right? I had no job, but I mean, I would always have like the cash that was in my pocket.
Right.
But that gets old too, for what it's worth. You know what I mean? That gets old too. And so,
did you ever have to sleep in your car?
No, I never had to sleep in the car. I think I had a couple shitty apartments. Enough. Am I allowed to say that on here?
Yeah.
Is that okay? Sorry,
it's your podcast, man.
Sorry. Okay. I had a couple apartments that like I probably wished I would have slept in my car, to be fair. But yeah, I had a few roommate situations that weren't ideal. But no, never actually did the sleep in the car thing.
So you're a first generation American.
I am. Yeah, both of my parents are from Poland, from the motherland. My dad came over in his teens. My mom came over in her mid-20s. So,
have you been back to this? Are they from a village or a city?
It's the third city. It's Łódź, it's called. It's the third largest city in Poland. Still very poverty-stricken, very affected from World War II still. You see a lot of like buildings.
Even today.
Oh, yeah. Buildings still collapsed that haven't been built back up. Old concentration camps that weren't being used. I mean, crazy stuff for sure. And so I've been back, 4 or 5 times throughout my childhood, kind of weddings and funerals, stuff like that. And so, yeah.
How did your parents connect here in the States?
Yeah, so kind of an interesting. So my dad was, you mentioned my dad earlier. My dad's dad was like real deal pilot, real deal for the Polish military. And so
was that during World War II?
During World War II. So he's with the Polish military, flying above, doing all this stuff. Real badass dude, right? After that, started working with the Allies, working with the British government or whatever on some stuff. Then started working with like the CIA, doing like fly over, see what they got going on, take pictures, turn around, get out before they shoot you down type stuff.
That's a dangerous job right there.
The guy had 3 Purple Hearts for bravery, which means he got shot down 3 times and had to survive, right? My dad's dad.
Yeah.
And so when he got done with that and they retired, the CIA, the Allies, everything, the military came through. They said, wherever you want to go, we'll set you up. He said, San Francisco, California. That's how my dad's side of the family got there. My mom escaped communist Poland, was an amazing pianist, like brilliant pianist. Composition and stuff like that, spectacular. She got a scholarship to go study in Britain piano, right? And so as soon as she got the opportunity to get away from communist Poland, she told my grandma, like, I'm out, I'm using this, I'm going to get out. She goes into Britain for like a year, ends up escaping the school, leaving the school, right? Defecting, getting a job basically like in a motel, cleaning rooms in exchange for a room.
This was a phenomenal pianist working in a motel cleaning room.
Just cleaning rooms, trying to learn the language, like little Polish lady, strong Polish woman, but like thick accent. To this day, she still has a thick accent, right? And so got away, learned enough with the language, and then eventually came over to the United States like she was like 24 years old. Actually met my dad in England on vacation. He was on vacation. She was on vacation. They're both living in the Bay Area at the time. And they met on vacation in England, which is pretty cool.
But they were both in the Bay Area
they
when
were
they
both,
met in England?
Exactly.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Real small world type stuff for sure. But to finish my mom's story, so my mom comes over to California, gets a job with Hewlett Packard at the time, which was like a great American company. And this is like in the 90s, right? Where it was, you know, progressive, but it's still a good old boy company, right? And, you know, chauvinistic company. And so my mom gets a job doing basically secretary work because she could type 100 words a minute because those fingers she's got. And then, you know, climb the ranks. Eventually she retired as a project manager with Hewlett Packard. It's like a real American dream type story.
That was in San Francisco.
In the Bay Area.
Hustlers in your blood.
No doubt. Yeah, that Polish immigrant hustle is definitely there for sure. Sure.
Amy I'm glad you guys got to meet because I talked about you.
I appreciate that. I talk about you too.
Talk about you. And she's probably, I was telling her when we got here, she's the most encouraging, like building up person in me. And I know that's important.
Absolutely.
You said you had those people and then they started trailing off. Who were some of those people that were carrying you through before you hit that bottom spot?
Yeah. It's funny, you know, like relationships in your 20s, I think they all sort of serve a purpose anyway. Right. And you have these relationships that I see it with some of my son, my 22-year-old son, some of my younger agents on my team. They've got these relationships that are like really tight, right, in your 20s. And you feel like you can never do without these people and they'll be in your life forever. And I think you find the reality is like they'll be in your life as long as it serves your life and their life positively, that you're in their life at the moment. And the minute it doesn't, it becomes inconvenient. They kind of go by the wayside. Right. And so throughout my 20s, I mean, I probably worked, I don't know, man, 6-7 jobs, like for a year, 2 years at a time, 6 months at a time.
How many at one time?
I think the most is 2, but I was probably working like 80 hours a week at the 2.
Oh, dang.
I'll tell you what, though. I mean, I'll work 80, 90 hours a week now selling real estate. And it's, you know, like nothing like 40 hours a week at a job you hate, right? When you're coming home just miserable, feeling disrespected, feeling unappreciated, feeling, you know, like the assets that you bring to the table aren't being used in the proper way. To me, that's exhaustive, right? You get off, you can't wait to get a drink or can't wait to do whatever. You're like, oh, it's a Monday. Oh gosh, it's a hump day. I can't handle it. You know, now I'm working 7 days a week and I don't think about that stuff at all. I love what I do. Right. So,
were you working when you went golfing? Is that or Florida a couple weeks ago? Where'd you go?
Yeah. We went to Mexico, actually. We went to Mexico. So
and you're still working that fishing.
A lot of it. Yeah, a lot of it. So those are some of my buddies I've had for a decade plus.
Okay.
Great dudes, all successful in their fields, which are various. We get together once a year, do a fishing trip, 4 or 5 days, try to do some deep sea fishing because we all fish lakes on the regular here. And so get together, you know, try to center ourselves, support each other, get each other in a good head space, and then get back and crush the year, man. So few people like that. I've still got some friends, but it's funny that the closer you get to the truth, the simpler things get, right?
Yeah.
And the closer you get to the truth professionally, it seems like the tighter your circle gets, right? And just because it gets tighter, it actually gets stronger in value. But I'm definitely finding that to be the case. Our circles get tighter and tighter.
Your buddies that you're talking about now,
Yeah.
decade, now it's 2023. go back, that would be about 2013.
Oh yeah, some of them I met in 2005 when I first got to Colorado Springs. Some I've known since 2010. Yeah, some even longer than that. Some come from all over the country. I've known since I was 20 years old.
2005, you came to Colorado Springs, and that, I believe 2007 is when 2005 is when you started real estate?
2009. So in 2007, I did get a job in real estate working as a marketing guy for a real estate company. So that was kind of my introduction to the product and to the business and to the industry.
But that 05 to 09 was kind of that bottom belly.
The market was down. Yeah, the market was really down.
But even for you personally, right? Coming out
for me, it was the belly. Yeah. I think I came to Colorado in 2005 with some expectations that maybe like the change would fix it, right? Maybe the environment change would fix it. And I think you see that a lot, right? People saying that if I could just change my circumstance, if I could just get around some new people, that'll change it. Well, that doesn't do it. You know, you got to make the change, and the people around you, the environment around you, that's not going to make the difference until you make a difference in your behaviors and your habits and your thought process, right? And mindset. So yeah, 2007, 2008 was probably about the belly for me, for sure. I felt like I was working for a real estate company. To be frank, I'm not going to name the company. They weren't super progressive with some of the ideas that I was bringing to the table, stuff that I'm implementing now on a regular basis, whether it be video, whether it be some interior marketing, whether it be a commitment to like staging, stuff like that with our houses, just presentation of the homes that we sell. I've always kind of had that mindset in the company I was with, and granted it was 2007, 2008, so the market was down, but they were very dismissive of some of those ideas. I think the low point was when I was kind of transitioning, and I got feedback. They said, you know, you should go get a job doing videos or photos and stuff like that.
The real estate was telling you,
yeah,
real estate might not be for you.
Real estate might not be for you. You should be like a photographer or something like that. Okay. And I just remember thinking, like, I'd worked for this guy for like 2 years. And I just remember thinking, like, that's what somebody who I've worked for, who I felt like I was doing a good job for, that's what they thought of me. That's the value they thought.
Poor leadership at the end of the day. That's just poor leadership.
Probably, or maybe I wasn't showing some of the value, or maybe, you know, maybe all of the above, right? But
were you not showing the same value? Because I feel like a leader should be the one who's saying, okay, you've got potential. Let's move this forward. For after 2 years to say that, the gut punch. Yeah,
I felt like I was working hard. You know, I've always carried a little bit of a chip on my shoulder for sure. Like even at the low points, I felt like I had something to offer. Mm-hmm. I think the lowest point for me was when I actually really had to look at myself in the mirror, get my real estate license, and just say, okay, now's the time for me to show my mettle, right? Like I believed in myself for all this time. I've had, you know, those select group of people that have believed in me, but you know, time to show what you're made of, for sure.
What year do you think that was?
2009.
You remember it distinctly?
Oh yeah, 2009. The transition was distinct for sure. You know, had some confidence, but like anybody else who switches and gets their real estate license, you quickly realize like getting your real estate license does not make your phone ring. You have to go make it ring.
You have to hustle.
You got to hustle, and you got to get good at it as fast as you can, which means a lot of phone calls, a lot of tough conversations, a lot of getting hung up on,
Sounds familiar.
Sounds familiar. Hell yeah.
Yeah, right? This dude, I think one day I watched him make 30 phone calls and talk to one person.
Yeah.
No, it was like 86 phone calls.
That one, it's hard to watch.
What's funny is when you first pick up the phone, we talk about this all the time. Like anytime you're getting your real estate license, at first you're picking up the phone and you're calling, right? Calling Juice to sell his house or whatever. Pick up the phone. I get your voicemail. I'm like happy at first that I get your voicemail because I get to leave like a spiffy message. Hey, this is Greg, blah, blah, blah. Hang up the phone. Count that as a contact, right? That person's not calling you back. Never is that person calling you back. But then eventually becomes a shift where you actually feel like you want the other person to answer the phone because you want the opportunity. And that shift, when you feel it, is freaking liberating, man, because that means you can actually go, you don't have to have somebody fish for you. You can go fish yourself, right? You can go bring the meat back to camp. And so to me, that's the biggest transition. So all young professionals in sales, You got to work through it. You just got to put up the calls. You got to put the time in. Eventually it gets easier. And I promise you, eventually one day you'll be begging for that person to answer the phone.
Back in 2009, when you made that shift, did you notice, is that when you started changing your relationships and you started kind of like moving away from certain friendships? Because in my personal experience, my friends, my community, they are the true motivators in life. They are uplifting and they push me through. And I had to, at one point, start saying goodbye to certain friendships because there are people who unwittingly will drag you down.
Yeah, or knowingly, right? Or they know.
Or they know and they want you to stay at their level.
Yeah, absolutely. And even the story they're going to give you about how they were unlucky and how, you know, you need to help them out because they were unlucky. I mean, that's dragging you down, right? Anything that's not supporting what you're doing, if that's a high priority for you, is dragging you down. It'd be the same as somebody not being supportive of a relationship or of your relationship with your children or something like that, right? Yeah. Building a business takes that level of commitment. I really believe that. So, we definitely had to transition. I mean, a lot of it was sort of natural. I had so many friends that were kind of friends out of convenience, right? Like people that you worked with at the previous job or people that were in the same mode as I was, which was, you know, let's drink away the day at work because that sucked. You know what I mean? Well, it's easy to let those guys go because you're pretty soon they're at the bar at 6 p.m. and you're working until 9 p.m., 10 p.m. And so those weeded themselves out pretty easily. I'd say the more challenging part was trying to find some of that like emotional reconciliation with the relationships that did matter, right? The ones that you did want to hold on to, and trying to get them to understand that the person that you've been for the last decade is not the person that you're going to be moving forward. Right. And doing that to yourself is one thing, but then, you know, getting away from some of the bad habits that you've got by getting the people in your life to accept that and support that is challenging too. So,
yeah, I remember going through a period where I actually grieved that side of me, even though it was dragging me down. There's still a grief process of saying goodbye to that thing that you're so used to. Did you ever go through that where you felt that pull or you felt this depression that you're not quite sure what was happening?
A little bit of that. I think for me, the bigger challenge was sort of like that imposter syndrome that comes with it.
That still comes.
Fraud.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, but I found pretty early on some success in real estate. I mean, I was rookie of the year at the first company I was with, and found some success fairly quickly. So, you know, I tried to ride the wave as long as possible. I'd say for me, the challenging thing was calling up some of the people that I'd had relationship with and trying to get them to see me in a little bit of a different light. And so as I'm calling some of these people and as I'm trying to explain to them what my journey is looking like and what my career path is looking like and how much I'm pouring into this new business and this new venture of mine and how seriously I'm taking it. As I'm trying to explain this stuff to people in my life, I'm triggering in my head, like, what if they're right? What if you weren't good enough? What if you did bite off more than you can chew? What if your ambition is greater than your talent? Whatever that is, right? So for me, I think the imposter syndrome was a little bit more prevalent than the grieving process per se, but feels sort of along the same emotional spectrum for sure. Yeah. I mean, still to this day, right? We still, to the ambitious people, we keep biting off more and more and more and more. And you wonder when it's going to catch up to you and when you're going to run out of, you know, when your fastball's not going to be fast enough at a certain point. Right. But,
just figure out how to make it faster.
Yeah.
Just
keep pressing. And I think I find a lot of solace in, it was 2015. I'm sorry. 2014, 2015. So 5 years in the business. Sold, I think it was like 70 houses for $16 million that year.
Whoa.
And so 70 houses for $16 million, right? Think about it today in Colorado Springs.
Oh my goodness.
30 houses will get you to $16 million.
That's
right.
I mean, that's an insane amount of houses to sell in a year too.
No assistant, no anything. I was hustling myself, right? And so a really good friend of mine who's a title rep in the business. She's been in the business now like 20 years. At that point, it was like 12 years, but still she'd been around the block and she'd seen good agents. And dear friend of mine, we were talking about it. And I was still emotionally and mentally in a headspace where it was like, it's sales. It could all go away tomorrow. Ride the wave as long as you can.
This is still 2018.
This was 2014. Sorry.
14. Oh, yeah. So before we got to that point. You got to that
point. So 2014. And this was a huge aha moment in my career. And so at that point, I was hustling. I was just trying to gather as much sales as possible, try to do everything I could. Was really enjoying the wave of actually making some money and doing something I enjoyed. And so she told me, she said, Greg, you know how many agents in this business that you revere, that you look up to, that you respect, that haven't gotten to 16 million and 70 houses? That's a lot of houses.
Ever?
Like in a year, right?
Ever in a year.
Correct. That was a lot. I mean, 70 houses to this day is still a good amount, right? But I was just ferocious, man. I was tireless. Like I was loving it and I was getting after it. But for some reason, that conversation, I left that conversation and my mindset just flipped. And for some reason from that day, I left thinking, okay, this is what I'm put on this planet to do. And the rest of my career and the rest of my life, I'm just going to spend getting as good at this as possible. And so when you get to that, it does relieve some of the pressure with the imposter syndrome, because you're like, look, I'm going to get as good as I possibly can at it. And I'm going to work relentlessly to get as good as I can at it. And if that puts me at number 1, that's awesome. If it puts me at number 100, I can live with that because I know that's the best I can be. And so I think once you start getting to that point, again, very liberating mindset. You don't have to stress if your best is good enough as much anymore, in my opinion.
In the beginning, how much of a role did being a father play in you just turning your life and moving forward and hustling and driving you?
Yeah, I mean, I think some of that stuff forced me to grow up. Some of that stuff forced me to be responsible. Interesting though, I mean, honestly, So November 1st, I signed the paperwork to become the majority owner at Keller Williams Clients Choice.
This November?
November 1st, yeah.
6 months ago. Okay.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah,
That's
good
awesome.
job.
It's exciting. Again, it's a big bite to chew off, but you know, we're going to work relentlessly to get it absolutely perfect. And so I told like my girlfriend, I told her, you know, the minute I signed that paperwork, I became a better boyfriend, father, friend, boss, agent. It just, you feel the gravity of the responsibility when you have employees and people and people's families relying on you to set the precedent, to set the tone, and to lead them. And so actually, I think this job, working real estate, finding something that gave me fulfillment, that gave me motivation, purpose, absolutely. I think that actually, for whatever reason, pushed me to grow more than even fatherhood did. Now I've got a 10-year-old as well. And so it's so funny, like with him, I feel hyper responsible and also like way more hands off, way more free with him. Where my 22-year-old, I was 20 when I had him. I was doing the best I knew how, which was like every single thing was a coaching moment, right? I mean, like
you're just putting tools in that toolbox one day at a time.
It's a 10-year-old basketball game. This is going to set the lessons that set you up for the rest of your life, and let me scream at you for an hour about it, right? I mean, everything was a coaching moment. I was so like relentless about that stuff, probably too much so. And my son is now 22 years old. He's in the Navy. He's a nuclear tech for submarines. He's so mentally strong. Pretty good. He's so mentally strong. I mean, he's underwater like 4 or 5 months at a time. That kid is absolutely rock solid.
He's got some grit. That's
no
rough.
doubt, no doubt. But so I'll take some credit for that. But I don't know if I injected that the right way. Hopefully, my work ethic was more what he saw than some of the parenting lessons. But
the word identity comes to mind today.
Yeah,
listening to you, and you've been through different stages. I want to hear like how you came out into who you are based on what you grew up with your dad.
Yeah,
and those lessons that you got from him.
Yeah. My dad was the most affable person I think I'd ever met. I mean,
define affable. I'm sorry,
like,
that's a new one for me.
personality, likable, enjoyable to
okay.
be around. People want to spend time with them. I mean, like,
You would be affable too, then.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that. I
Yeah.
don't. I get mixed reviews on that sometimes, but I appreciate it. But my dad was just, I mean, the funniest guy. The everybody liked him. The coolest guy I knew. Right. One of the smartest people I knew. Really, really intelligent. Really hardworking guy. Worked for in the Silicon Valley doing metal fabrication. Right. So plating. Metals, like non-conductive, and so you take these little small microchips in the Silicon Valley, but it's like a conductive material, and they'd plate it with a non-conductive metal and do this hundreds of thousands of times over to make microchips that would go in computers in the Silicon Valley, right? He was so good at it, he actually got hired by University of California. They're the Golden Bears to plate the bear in
Cal?
Yeah, Cal.
Really?
Berkeley. And so
Wow,
he
okay.
plated the big bear in front of the stadium that's gold. He plated it gold. I mean, he was legit, and he would work so darn hard. But
Mr. Luczak
plated
the Cal Bear.
No doubt. Richard Luczak.
Campus.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But he had his demons too. I mean, he was a drinker, battled that. I told you he had a massive heart attack and a really debilitating stroke when I was 23. And so from the time I was 23, the right side of his body was paralyzed. He never talked again. He never walked again. And the next 12 years were a really slow, really painful deterioration of his body, to where by the time he passed, I mean, I didn't recognize my father anymore. It was almost relieving. Right. But my father would always speak about the family name, the Luczak name, what that means, what that's from. And I think, maybe his demons came from feeling like he didn't, maybe he didn't do as much with the opportunity being here in America as he would have liked. I'm just interjecting after decades of, contemplation about it. But
well, you came to a point where you started realizing or catching that.
Yeah.
And so, like, walk through that. When was that you started realizing?
Well, just to give a little bit, and my dad was, I know in my heart, I know he loved me immensely. I know he did. I mean, the guy wouldn't miss a baseball game. He'd yell at me every time I didn't get a hit. He'd dog cuss me
present
the entire ride home. He'd tell me how bad I was, right? If I went 2 for 5, but like, he was there, he was present. And I know it meant a lot to him.
He wanted you to succeed.
He wanted me, I think he wanted me to succeed. It's funny though, the way you do it when you have this really strict, really demanding childhood, and it can come across in a way where it's like, it's not good enough. It's not good enough. Well, it starts reading to a 10-year-old, 11-year-old, 12-year-old, 13-year-old as you're not good enough, right? There's something in you that's meant to lose and not to win. And you start carrying that, right? And so in a way, I'm, hyper thankful for it, because it keeps me really motivated. It keeps me always wanting more. It keeps me always trying to push the quality standard, push the production level, push my professional growth, all of these things.
Shows where we're at right now.
Yeah. I appreciate that. Appreciate you guys being here actually too. But I think in my early 20s, we started to transition some of that. Once my dad got sick, it's like he couldn't respond verbally, but we had a lot of, one-sided quote unquote conversations where, we buried the hatchet. I had conversations with him about, I understand why he did what he did. I understand that he was probably speaking more to a reflection of himself in me than me. Right.
You were saying all this and he couldn't respond.
Yeah. I mean, early on it was like nods and grunts and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Eventually he had speech therapy to where, he could get like a yes or a no out, but it was painstaking.
Did you feel like this frustrated, huge weight that was lifting off your shoulders as you were talking to him about this? There
were definitely moments that I could reflect in his eyes that he was accepting what I was saying. He was accepting what I was saying. And which was great. I was also very tormented that, like, what if we could have gone back and done things better?
Yeah.
You know, he was a complicated man, but, you know, definitely the most formative relationship in my life, in good and bad ways. And to your point, right? Like, look where we're at. And that's, you know, I know I have so much of that to be thankful to him for sure.
I have a question.
That was emotional. Damn.
I know. I feel like
you're going to get me crying on a podcast.
I feel like you should tell us what's in that glass right there.
It's bourbon.
Is that bourbon?
Bourbon, thought juice.
That's her
Thought
favorite.
juice.
That's, he's probably said Amy's going to mention that.
We could be drinking here. Yeah, absolutely.
I will never say no to a bourbon.
We do a lot of late night call nights and stuff like that with my team, and so sometimes it takes
Pull
the edge off.
Mad Men vibes right now.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely, yeah. So we can, we'll cut the bourbon open every once in a while, pour a glass of wine, and we'll just get the juices flowing creatively and on the phones with sales. So yeah, we're not at the Luczak group specifically. We're not opposed to having a drink or two.
What's your drink? What's your drinking choice?
So I fell in love with bourbon. I'm Polish, so I was a vodka guy my entire childhood. My mom was the type, like, you know, toasting with vodka from a very young age.
How old were you the
How old
first
were you
time?
first drink? Yeah.
So in Poland, they have this stuff that my mom would bring back, and my grandma would bring with her every time she'd come for summer. And it's this vodka, like this Polish potato vodka, but they would soak it like in black cherries from the
oh, that sounds amazing.
From the German, like, Black Forest or whatever it is, right? And so they would take these cherries, and it'd be this like bottle of vodka with just cherries loaded in it, to where it almost is like one of these, what do they call those at the party where they fill up the bathtub with Everclear and fruit punch?
Oh,
moonshine.
It's almost
like moonshine. Like,
no, they call it like funky punch or
trendy.
Something.
Like
Whatever.
in the last 7 years, I think.
Okay,
yeah,
we're like in our 30s and 40s. We don't know what you're talking about.
But the bottom line is, it would be this like marinated thing where the cherries would be soaked in vodka, and you would pour the juice out, and it would be this blend of like vodka and cherry. Anybody from Poland or anybody who can access any of this stuff, you got to bring one back. But you'd put it in the freezer, and it would pour out like a syrup. And so it started out, my mom would like want me to be there, as she'd have get-togethers. My mom was always like the life of the party. And so my mom to this day like toasts a ton. Nostrovia, right?
Wow.
The Polish means 100 years, right?
Okay.
And so it's like Nostrovia. And so you toast, and my mom would be like, ting, 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 Nostrovia. I mean, you'd toast over a dinner with her friends. She'd toast 15 times. And so I'm sipping, following. Before you know it, I'd go through, you know, one of these little shot glasses of this cherry deliciousness at a dinner. Before you know it, I'm 13. And it's like 3 or 4 of those. Now I'm buzzed with my mom. It was really great. It was really great. So
13.
13.
I probably started it closer to like 12, but it was more of a sip type thing. But
It's funny you say that. I can't remember. I'm trying to think of where it was. I think it was northern Croatia, and some friends that I had made when I lived there, they brought out some wine that they had made in like I want to say he was 11, maybe 12. He would drink some, and he's like, "Oh, this is so good." And he's laughing. His dad's like, "Okay, that's enough."
That's enough.
And then he would like sneak out and get some more.
They
and,
like it
you
too
want
much.
some juice? And his dad's like, "No, okay, you're done." And I think it was like 4 times. He finally got up, grabbed the bottle, said, "You're done."
Absolutely.
Yeah,
a little bit different over there.
I let my kid take sips of whiskey sometimes. Just my thought is, if you allow it, then it's not a rebel thing. But then he went around to church saying, "I love whiskey.
Yeah,
I drink whiskey all the time."
Yeah, you get thrown under the bus.
Yeah,
for
that was not cool.
And I'll tell you this: like, my mother was not. I mean, she did not play. Okay, this was like
She's old school. Poland,
she's
right?
old school from Poland, like strong. One of the strongest women I've ever met. One of the strongest people I've ever met. I mean, this is a woman that just was like, no excuses, no victim BS. She doesn't play it. Sweet, but yeah. So
sweet but strong.
Sweet but very, very strong. And her philosophy was always, if you're going to drink, you're going to do it at my house, where I can make sure you're safe. Yeah, for sure. So,
was there ever a time you threw your mom under the bus?
You know, I got to be honest with you.
In Poland, like, do all the kids kind of?
I think it's kind of a thing. I think it's kind of a thing. It's a little bit less. I mean, in Poland, it's like when you're 18, you're full grown, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's no like wait till 21 type stuff. And so it's a little bit different. I gotta be honest with you. My mom was like the person I was most scared of. Like, I mean,
There's a healthy fear.
for sure. I mean, I just always didn't want to disappoint her because she was so put together and so like was such a strong single mom, such a strong single mother. And so, yeah, no, I would never dream of throwing her under the bus ever, to be honest with you.
Were you?
I don't know that you would live through it.
Your parents were divorced at a certain point?
Yeah, they split up. I was about 8. And so,
still in San Francisco,
still in the Bay Area. Yeah. And so, my mom lived in the peninsula. She moved to San Mateo. You know where that is? It's like 30 minutes from the city.
Close to Oakland?
It's
right?
like 30 minutes. It's right in the middle. And so a lot of the athletes live there, but it's right in the middle. It's like 30 minutes to San Francisco, 30 minutes to San Jose, 30 minutes to Oakland. It's right in the middle.
Okay.
You get access to everything. My dad still lived in Half Moon Bay area, which is a little bit closer to the Bay Area, to San Francisco, along the coast there. And so I do weekends at dad's, and then during the week be at my mom's.
Mom.
Yeah.
Do you look forward to weekends at dad's?
Sometimes, usually, you know, I mean, my dad was a functioning alcoholic and depressive, right? And so there were definitely a lot of times that you'd be super excited about seeing dad, and then, you know, by halfway through the weekend, you're calling to get picked up, or, you know, the weekend takes a turn on you, for sure. It was inconsistent, which was challenging.
Were you an only child?
Only child, yeah.
Wow.
Did your mom ever look forward to you with your dad for the weekend?
Probably. You know, my mother was so strong.
He asked that because I do that too. I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't wait for you to go to your dad's.
Oh, absolutely. Freedom, right?
Your mom was strong?
My mother was, I think she might have dated by the time I was 8 to 18. I think she might have dated along that decade. If she did, she didn't let me know about it. I mean, she was like, my job for the next 10 years is to raise this kid and get him to adulthood. She met an awesome guy when I was 19, so I was already out of the house. She met an awesome guy, and she's been married ever since.
Oh,
so
good
she's
for
been
her.
married for over 20 years now.
And
So you guys get along then?
Yeah,
Awesome
yeah, he's a great guy. He treats her so well. They love each other. They have a super supportive relationship. It's all I could ask for sure.
Where do they live?
Westcliff, Colorado. So they moved to Westcliff 3-4 years ago. Which, if
be
you haven't been
closer
out
to you?
there, it's gorgeous. No, so actually, my mom moved to Poland. My mom and my stepdad moved to Poland for about 8 years. They were doing like a Bible college, opening a ministry.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's awesome.
Yeah, she'd be an awesome person to interview.
Oh, dude.
Stories.
Yeah,
I would
his wheels.
love
I
to
saw
talk to
he
her.
got this look. I don't know if you know, like we know someone. They get
I
a
was a
look,
missionary in Croatia.
and the
That's
wheels
why I
start
went
turning.
over there.
See, now
No
he's
kidding.
all
I'm like,
excited.
yeah,
I'm out.
Bible
I'm done.
degree,
Bye. He's gonna go.
youth ministry emphasis.
Nice,
Yeah.
very cool. I didn't know that. Yeah, so my mom went out and started a Bible college in Poland. I think they're up to like 50 students now. Built that out for like 8-9 years.
Awesome.
Gave it to somebody else out there to take and run with. She came back, moved back to Colorado, and then moved out to Westcliff for a little bit more space and stuff like that.
Have they been involved with any of the refugees from Ukraine? Or do you hear much about that?
No, I haven't heard much about that. I mean, the what was going on over there was definitely effective in Poland. I mean, everything in that
is so close.
Everything was so close in there. I mean, I think everything was affected by it for sure. And so I know a lot of my family was concerned about what this might look like out there and what might happen. And so, yeah.
So getting back to kind of where you came from, how you went through it all, like, how would you define yourself now? How would you define yourself before? I have a couple adjectives in mind, but I'm curious your thoughts. You know,
I at this point, I am so committed to what I'm doing as a career. Have you guys seen Jiro Dreams of Sushi?
No. Is that a movie?
I haven't even heard of it.
Okay, gotta check it out.
Is it Japanese?
It's on Hulu, I think, right now. And so it's a movie. It's a documentary about this 80-year-old Japanese sushi master. And he's got 3 Michelin stars at his little restaurant. They don't even have a bathroom they don't even have a bathroom on premises.
Yeah.
Okay. But he's like this ultimate representation of this Japanese philosophy called shokunin, which I've been like obsessed on going on a year now since I stumbled on this movie. And now I've been like completely obsessed with it. But it's basically this thought process that you find what you're meant to do and you spend the rest of your life getting amazing at it and perfecting the craft. And so he's a sushi guy. Three ingredients, rice, fish, sauce, right? And this dude is like still 80 years old, perfecting his craft, working on it constantly, like lives for this. And so I like to fancy myself as kind of a modern day American Shokunin, man. Honestly, like I love what I do. And so the best compliment I can receive is when you tell me I'm a hard worker. Whenever somebody says that, that's when I'm like really giddy.
I'm slowly seeing lights turn off over here. Do you got to get back to wrap anything up?
No, not at all. I don't know what
I mean, time has flown. Yeah, we're already at 46 minutes.
Oh, no kidding, man. Time has flown.
It feels like maybe.
Well, you're
15,
a great conversation.
20.
I will say you're a great storyteller.
Oh,
you're very interesting and a hard worker.
I appreciate that very much. Thanks especially. What were the adjectives?
Trying to get some of your bourbon.
Yes, as much as you want.
You? That's my secret. It's telling my secret.
Hey, I love beer.
Yeah.
I will never.
It's in this really
beer.
cool like earth bottle. It's just, it really has Mad Men vibes.
It's
like
this
corner right here.
It's like a bourbon decanter.
Yeah.
I told you we had to be in this. Do you feel cozy enough with us?
Yeah.
I feel great, man. It's flying by. I can't believe it's been 40 minutes already.
Yeah. No, you. Now I'm kind of losing them.
What advice would you give to someone like? Because I think your story is so inspiring. Nothing to move up and then hustling, hard work. I mean, what would you say to someone who walked in your office and be like, I want to be like you, or even I want to be better?
Yeah, totally can be.
Yeah.
Totally can be. And again, like with my philosophy, I'm not competing against a curve where I want people to be worse so I can win.
Yeah.
Like I want everyone to be better. I'm just trying to be as great as I can. Right. And so pushing that, anybody who wants to get into real estate, the thing I'll say is that it's super doable. You've heard, some of my story. It's life-changing like you wouldn't believe, honestly, and what it's done for me. Find your why, and your why has to be for you.
Mm-hmm.
And so you've got to have either be inspired by building your own business, be inspired by succeeding at something different, inspired for something for yourself. I get all the time, I want to help people. And helping people is great. I love to help people, but you're going to help like your kids first, your loved ones second, your own sanity third, your friends fourth, your vacation time fifth. And then with that extra time, then you want to help people,
that's the reality of it.
And so when you're coming into this business, just know that you got to work like crazy. You got to work like crazy. I always say there's only three ingredients to being successful in real estate.
This was awesome. I loved hearing you say this.
So there's only three ingredients to being successful in real estate. I'll start from least important to most important. Okay. The least important is you have to have some level of personality. You have to enjoy talking to people. People have to somewhat enjoy talking to you. Okay. Second, you have to be self-driven. If you need a supervisor looking over your shoulder for you to get work done, real estate might not be the job for you. You have to be able to get up, drive yourself, push yourself harder than the next guy, harder than you think you're capable of. You've got to be self-driven. Third most important, you got to be the market expert. So that takes time. That takes practice. That takes commitment like crazy. That's the most important one, right? But you got to have all three.
I heard him say that, and I was like, I can't resist. Like, I try to stay away, but I can't. I just get sucked into all three of those.
The market expert part?
I'm addicted to becoming an expert.
Oh, that's right. He's got a little OCD. I know a little OCD in both you guys. It's part of that, probably that hustler mindset.
I see that. that. Well, I mean, you're also in a sport, right, where you're working relentlessly.
Like golf.
But yeah, you're working relentlessly, and you're getting up, and you're putting in so many hours, and you're putting in so much practice to shave a half second, right?
Oh, less than that,
right?
I mean,
but to golf, like to shave a stroke.
Yeah. I heard John Coyle once say the difference between first place and 10th place in one of his world championships, 10th place was, I think, almost the full second. And he did the clap. And so he was like, no, it was 3/4, whatever. He goes,
yeah.
And he said in that amount of time, 10 people crossed the line.
Wow. Yeah. And so that's what's so amazing to me about you is, number one, that discipline where you, are working for such like minute improvements. That, and then the other thing we've talked about is, I don't care if you're faster than your competition. Are you fastest on the day it counts?
That's right. That is 100% correct.
Right. Like all the gymnasts, all the figure skaters, all the Olympians, like I don't care how fast you are. Are you fastest on the day it matters? Because that's all that matters.
February 20th, 2026,
Yep.
whatever that day is,
Yep.
on that final, that's what matters.
That's the only day.
Yep.
You got to bring your best on that
Everything
day.
else is
and
important,
everything's
but
working
yeah.
towards it, right? Yeah, awesome.
So,
Unbelievable.
aspirational and settled with those aspirations. That's kind of listening to you talk some more today makes me think of where you're at, because driven's important, purpose, all that stuff is good, but sometimes I think those words get overused because they're typical for motivating people, trying to get mindset. Even the word mindset, sometimes I used to get a little overboard on that, just because almost like a buzzword, or
I agree.
Or So, but it's not that you had a vision of where you wanted to be. You just had aspiration, almost an aspiration to find something that you didn't even know you were looking to find something.
Absolutely.
And it's cool hearing you say how passionate you are about real estate, and that you're settled in that. And then even when Amy asked, like, someone coming to you, you're comfortable with building someone to be better than you.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I 5 years ago, I started my team. Excuse me.
Here with Keller Williams?
So I was with Coldwell Banker for most of my
Okay.
career. I switched over to Keller Williams in November when I bought the office.
Gotcha.
So I made the transition. But 5 years ago, 6 years ago, 2016, 2017, I started my team. 2015, 16, I started getting real into like mentoring. And I started realizing how important the mentorship process was, and how I would gain almost more from my mentees than they would gain from me, I felt like.
Wow.
Right. And so that got me, got my wheels turning and got me really wanting to build out a team and build out other agents. And I'll tell you, like, there's nothing like seeing them succeed, seeing them find fulfillment, seeing them, that thing flick in their brain that says, okay, this is what I'm supposed to do. This is the career I'm on this planet to do. You know, and then they get new cars and they get proud of it, or they get to record sales, or they have record months that they're so excited about. That's like what it's at. That's what's up for me now. I mean,
that's cool.
The diligence of being like the best I can at sales, but also as a leader, and also providing that platform for them to succeed. And I have a couple guys on my team that, if they keep at it and they keep working hard, man, they'll be better than I am, for sure.
That's awesome.
For sure.
That is so cool. Last question that comes to mind. You're in real estate. You help people buy homes
all the time.
Before I get to the last one, how many new home buyers do you work with, you think?
Like first home?
Yeah, first time home.
In a year. So I'm kind of downshifting some of my business as I have more on the leadership role side. And so at my peak, I sold 115 houses one year. That was 2018 by myself. I'll probably do 50 to 60 this year as I'm taking on more on the leadership side and stuff like that. Of the 50 and 60, probably, 5 to 10 will be first time home buyers. Okay. Clients, kids, stuff like that. Referrals, things like that. Yeah.
So I'm a loan officer.
Yeah.
You're a real estate agent. We know like how you can get into home.
Absolutely.
And so many people, especially when I left San Diego 4 years ago, home prices there were what home prices came to here a year ago.
Yeah.
And so in 3 years, like I got here, you can still buy a home for $180,000.
Yeah.
3 years later, fast forward to last year, I was like, I feel like I'm back in San Diego because prices are just so crazy. And so people, and the rent just follows. And you said an interesting thing for people who think that they cannot get into a home and they just kind of ignore it. What would be your advice to someone who feels like they're stuck and they're never going to make it? Maybe even they feel like you did back in 2005.
Well, so the thing I always go to, and a really savvy friend of mine came up with this and didn't come up with it, but told it to me, and I've been like marinating on it and using it a lot. But Juice, Amy, is there a house in Colorado Springs? Any house, pick any house. Is there any house in Colorado Springs that you would not buy at 2018 prices? How about 2009 prices? How about the worst market in the history of the world?
I don't think there's any home here that I wouldn't buy
Right?
those prices.
Right. And so to me, that speaks to like, well, we're never going to see 2018 prices again. Well, in 2030, we're going to be sitting there staring and saying, well, we're never going to see 2023 prices again. It's real estate. It's the name of the game. It goes up, right? It always goes up. I mean, you'll see these little dips and dodges and things like that, but it always goes up. So the advice I will give any first-time home buyer or any home buyer, lock in your cost of living as soon as you can. And so the two most important things you need are shelter and food, right?
Yeah.
Nobody's complaining that food prices got up. Your trip to the grocery store went from $50 3 years ago to $150 today, right? Everything's up, but you don't complain about that because that's necessary. Meanwhile, you'll sit there and pay rent, $2,000 a month to your landlord when you should be locking in your own cost of living. And so the big key is when you buy a house, even if that rent was $2,000 and you go to $2,300 for your mortgage, it's $2,300 for the next 30 years, right? So you're locking in that cost of living for the next 30 years.
You're not going to raise yourself rent.
You're not going to raise yourself rent, right? But what do you think you're going to be doing? What do you think your landlord's going to say at the end of the year? Is he going to keep the rent the same?
Either that or
if he does, he'd be the only one, right? It's always going up. And so I think for first-time home buyers, just getting past that trepidation, getting past that fear, and just buying something. And in 5 years, 10 years, I can promise you, you'll be glad you did. And the ultimate goal is to not sell it. Honestly, I mean, people got to sell houses. They move. They don't want to stay and be landlords. But if you look at any wealth in this country at all, it all includes some real estate in their portfolio. It all does. And so ideally, some of my first-time home buyers, I'm buying that first townhouse or first house or whatever that is for them, with the expectation for them of like, hey, even if you outgrow this place, let's turn into an awesome rental at that point. You know, let's start to build our portfolio with real estate, because one day in 30 years, you're going to owe zero and that thing is going to be worth 500, 600, $1 million. Multiply that by 2-3 times. It's a pretty foolproof way to become a millionaire, right?
There you go.
So
that's awesome. Well, Greg Luczak with Keller Williams, Client's Choice.
Appreciate you guys very much.
Thank you.
And invading the office, how do you feel? What do you think about
I don't want to
how
leave.
I
don't want to leave.
You just want to work like this?
It's just like this.
That's awesome. I promise you on the edit, there will be some good outro music. I don't have that programmed in here yet, but again, thank you so much.
Awesome. I appreciate you being on. It's an honor. Honestly, Jude, thanks so much for the conversations. I always really appreciate it. Great to meet you.
Thank you so much.
All right, we'll be back with another guest coming up. Thanks, Greg.
Thanks, y'all.